and welcome to our speaker series, our weekly speaker series for the Enabling Technology Project. We have a couple things happening today. We're going to have a speaker series presentation from Alaina Gallagher, who you all know well at this point in time. She's going to be talking about hearing and vision technology. And then we're going to have a vendor spotlight with Kelly Griffin from Map Habit. And so all of that's happening in the next hour. So buckle up, enjoy, get your popcorn ready, and Alaina, it's all yours.
I didn't bring my popcorn though, so bummer. All right, let me share my screen here real quick. All right, are you guys seeing this all right? And I can't see you nodding, so I assume since Paul didn't say no, then we should be good to go. All right, perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'm really excited to talk about very specific categories of technology for broken up into two parts for this training today. AT for blind and low vision, as well as AT for deaf and hard of hearing. Obviously understanding that within those categories, right, there is a broad spectrum when you move from low vision all the way up to fully blind, and same with hard of hearing up to fully deaf. So the technologies that you're using at those different stages are obviously going to vary, but I kind of did it more as like a catch-all of like, here are different technologies that help within these categories, so that can hopefully be some good takeaways for you all. So like I said, we're going to explore different technologies, strategies, services, things like that that are going to be helpful for people who have some of these sensory impairments. I think I just did multiple introduction slides because I really, really wanted to stress how excited I was to present this to you all. But I'll move on from that. So blind and low vision AT is where we are going to start. I wanted to start with some physical devices because a lot of you all are looking at some of these as options for people that you support and may not know that a lot of this stuff exists. So what I always say, if you guys have attended my presentations in the past, is that all of this stuff that I'm going to talk about today really is just the tip of the iceberg for what is out there. These are just some examples to really get the gears grinding, get you guys thinking about different things. And I like to say that hopefully you're like, wow, if that exists, I wonder if there's something like this. As always, if I don't talk about something and you're wondering if something exists that would meet a need you're trying to accomplish, feel free to send me an email following the presentation. Or I always like to say too, Google is your best friend in this industry. So I recommend searching, whatever it is you're looking for, and then adding assistive technology or enabling technology or adaptive equipment or things like that. Those are some key search functions that will go really well. I also always like to say lean into AI for help with some of this stuff. AI is not always the best search tool, but if you ask it questions like, maybe you're giving it a specific scenario and you say, any recommendations for assistive technology that could assist with this situation? It's actually sometimes really good at kicking out different ideas that maybe you didn't think of on your own. So just some tools that I'm recommending for moving past this to help you guys kind of really strike out on your own, but also do not hesitate to reach out to me if I can be of assistance at any time. So to start, I did one of my favorite pieces of technology first. This is the Orcam MyEye. And what it is, as you can see, it's a little rectangular device that has a camera and it attaches to a pair of glasses. So what I kind of like is it can attach to your own personal glasses if you wear them, but it can also, they send out these like glasses with it that don't have any prescription. So if you don't wear glasses, you have a means to keep it on your face still. They also create a physical device if you want to be able to hold it, things like that. The way that the Orcam MyEye works is it's actually set up where you can either tap it when you're looking at something and then it'll audibly describe what you're looking at, or you can set it up too and program it where if you point at something, it'll describe the thing that you're pointing at. So it recognizes where you're looking and what you're pointing at and will describe. It's really, really cool in that it can both describe like the scene that you're looking at or a detail. So I've tried this out and I was standing in front of somebody, pointed right at their eyeball, and it actually described that I was pointing at a green eye on a woman, which was really, really cool. It can also do where it reads signs, it reads text, it reads books, it reads currency, labels on cans, things like that. So it can be really, really helpful for somebody both in their home and outside of it, navigating the community. So that is the Orcam MyEye. Moving on, digital magnifiers and even regular magnifiers. It is kind of amazing to me how many different magnifying devices there are in the assistive technology world. And a lot of them do different things. That's why they have so many different options. So I specifically wanted to highlight digital magnifiers because they can have some crazy magnification. I've tested one similar to this device where I was standing in a hockey arena and I tilted it up and zoomed all the way across the arena into the exit sign at the far back. And I could see the individual pixelated light pieces behind the exit sign. So some of these have incredible zoom, which can be really helpful for people. Also, a lot of these digital ones have the ability to read the text that is under them. So that can be a really nice way to kind of aid and support somebody who maybe is low vision or blind. In addition, a lot of these and even some of the more simplified electronic magnifiers can do different things like color contrast. So you can change it and see things differently, because for some people, maybe putting a bright green background with black text is going to be better for them. Maybe reversing it where you've got a black background and white text. So really kind of working to find what's going to be the best for their vision. And these electronic magnifiers really have that capacity. Moving on to the C-Pen reader. This is one example. There are a handful of reader devices that are these pen devices, but they're just, I mean, they're really good. I'm also going to just note, this is a really excellent solution for somebody who also has dyslexia or might struggle with reading comprehension if they're reading too much or it can be overwhelming. That's why this picture says dyslexia awareness. It's because I think it was originally designed for that. But as you drag it across text on a page, it will read that out loud. In addition, some of them will actually take like recordings and things like that. So if you're sitting in a lecture, you're sitting in some sort of training or meeting at work, you have the ability to not only scroll along, you could also do different recordings and things like that. And then moving down, you guys know, if you've seen my presentations before, that I like to showcase a range of technologies, right? There is low tech to high tech. So I wanted to show some lower tech solutions as well. And one of them is a beeping ball, right? Something that's going to make noise so somebody can engage in a game and enjoy themselves, right? Like, and they're not limited to, okay, well, if I can't see it, I can't interact with it. So these can be really cool. I'll say I didn't include this on the hearing side, but on the hearing side, maybe it's something that you use a flashing ball to just help orient. If somebody's not going to hear a teammate say, hey, I'm throwing this at you, something like that, having that additional flashing light can help catch attention. So just know that there are adapted ways to do different games, sports, things like that for both low vision and blind and deaf and hard of hearing. Excuse me. Then moving on, I actually included these because I had a story about this, but high visibility measuring spoons. I was actually doing a presentation to a group of self-advocates, and I had with me some bright yellow high vis measuring spoons that had large text printed on them that was raised. And when I mentioned it and I like highlighted it and showed it to everybody, a woman approached me at the end and she said that she had already gotten online and ordered them because she was losing her vision and she was a baker. And the thing she was most nervous about was not being able to use her measuring spoons correctly. So she was really, really excited to learn that that was an option. So something as simple as that, right? Like being able to do this, they make mixing cups, bowls, things like that, where this can really make an impact on somebody and their hobbies, or adding a hobby, right, that they've maybe never done before, something fun that they can partake in. And then moving over for like high visibility keyboards. And similar to what I said with the magnifying devices, they make a wide range of keyboards for, you know, what those colors are going to look like. Sometimes it's a really, really big keyboard too, so that the person can really, really fully see those. So just know and understand there are a lot of adapted keyboards to fit some of these things. So moving on, Braille devices. I kind of left this as a separate category because a lot of folks can't read Braille if they weren't necessarily born with vision disability things. But for people who do read Braille, these are some really, really cool devices. So the refreshable Braille display can go on top of an existing keyboard on like a computer or on a laptop. And it will actually, as you're going through the screen, it'll be popping up the Braille so that you can be reading the text on the screen, even if you can't see it. Braille Note Touch, this is actually a tablet style device that has then the Braille keyboard so that it can also translate what's showing up on the screen. And then the Brailliant is very similar to the refreshable Braille device, but it's a little bit more simplified. And as you can see, it kind of has like fingerprint keys as well. But all of these devices can also be paired with screen readers and things like that that make it a little bit easier to engage with a computer or a tablet device. So speaking of screen readers and digital software-based or application-based magnifiers, these can make a really, really big difference for people. I just highlighted some of the more popular ones. So this top row is screen readers. So we've got JAWS and NVDA for Windows. JAWS is fairly expensive. It's a really, really in-depth system. And NVDA, I think, is maybe still, hopefully, their free version. And then for Mac and iOS, you've got VoiceOver. This is commonly used on the Apple phones. Keeping in mind that Apple actually does have a lot of built-in accessibility already. So oftentimes you don't even need to get these additional apps. You can set it up through settings to be able to increase a lot of that accessibility. And then on Android, a common application used is TalkBack. So these will actually take a look at what's on the screen and audibly read that out loud. And I do have a video highlighting how that works. But a good note here too is just built-in magnifiers on phones, on tablets, on computers, things like that can be extremely helpful for people with low vision. This Zoom text, I put it right dead center because I thought it was really cool that it is both a magnifier and a screen reader. So you have a lot of different options with those. So I'm going to play this, but I'm just realizing now that we might not have the audio. So hopefully this works, but please let me know if you're not hearing this.
Picture yourself surfing the web. You're looking at the things you like. But what if it looked like this? Okay, that's only a small percentage of people. It's more likely it would look like this. So how do you surf the web if you can't see? Screen readers are software that take this and make it more like this. Then it can read out the page for you, like this.
Home, link. About us, link. Contact us, link. Special summer bargains, heading. View deals, link. T-shirt, image.
You get the idea. There are a number of options for assistive technology like screen readers. The main ones are JAWS, which will cost about $1,000. Then there's NVDA, which is free. And there's VoiceOver, which is also free. You can try it yourself on your iPhone, or download our Chrome plugin. Everyone deserves access to the internet. If you need help getting your site up to scratch, visit silktide.com.
You guys don't need the ad, but I thought it was a good video to highlight that.
Picture yourself surfing the web.
Oops,
You're looking at the things you...
It wants to keep repeating when I scrolled with my keyboard. Okay, so then I just wanted to highlight how those screen readers work. I'm on a board with an individual who is fully blind, and he uses the screen readers and has said like it really, really opened up his access back to the professional world after he lost his vision. And people will have to train and kind of get comfortable with it over time, but it really, really is incredible how much accessibility it brings back to people. So then moving on to like, these are just some applications. And I will say, I've personally tested Seeing AI. Libby is one of my all-time favorite apps, but these are really excellent. So Seeing AI essentially is kind of replicating at a lower level, but it's free right now I always caveat right now because I think they're trying to get their user base and then we'll start charging a monthly fee. But it's replicating what that OrCam does. So if you want to start with something, if the individual has a cell phone or maybe they're interested in getting a cell phone, this would be a good option for them. It's really, really cool. It does those same things where it can take a picture of a room, it can describe very specific things, and it can read text. So I would recommend, if you guys haven't already heard of this or played with this, download it and play with it. I think it's just an awesome, awesome app. Be My Eyes is essentially a volunteer-led application. So volunteers who are sighted will be pulled in on a video chat conversation with an individual using the Be My Eyes app. And essentially through the video on their phone or on their tablet, that volunteer will be able to guide them and support them, describe what they're looking at, or help them throughout the community, tell them, hey, you're approaching a sidewalk or something like that, right? It's really, really cool. And it's as of the last time I checked, it was free. The Era app, that one is very similar to Be My Eyes. It is not free, so it is a paid service, but with that, it's trained professionals. It's not relying on volunteers. So you have a more consistent approach to getting a certified professional, and it's more 24/7 since it's not relying on the volunteers. Be My Eyes is relatively 24/7, but there might be a waiting period to actually get somebody to join in on the call. Voice Dream Reader. So this is an application on your phone that can actually just screen read, right? Libby and Netflix audio captioning. I threw these in because entertainment is a big thing for folks, right? So Libby is the library's free application to access ebooks, which maybe aren't as applicable for people with low vision or blindness, but also audiobooks. So a lot of people, right, maybe there's the barrier where audiobooks would be fantastic, but they're not able to access funding or be able to afford using something like Amazon's service. But this Libby app now opens it up where it is free and they can rent it from their libraries. So like I said, my all-time favorite app. And then this one's a fun one as well for entertainment is Netflix actually has, if you go into the subtitle section, for many of their shows and movies, they have audio description. And it is really cool. I've played around with it. So it actually like will describe what the scene is that's being laid out. So somebody who is blind or low vision where they can't really make out those details, it can be a lot more engaging. All right, so moving on to deaf and hard of hearing assistive technology. So starting with physical devices, I think obviously I didn't include them on here because I think we're all pretty familiar with things like hearing aids and cochlear implants, things like that really can like, hey, medically prescribed devices that can help somebody hear. But these are some off-the-shelf devices, right, that can also help. Personal amplifier systems. These can actually be really, really helpful for somebody who has an auditory processing disorder. Something where, right, their ears might work just fine. So they're not a good candidate for hearing aids, but their brain isn't processing sound as well. So when they get into a noisy environment with a lot of background noise, their brain's focusing in on that background noise instead of maybe the person sitting at the dinner table right across from them. So a personal amplifier allows them to put headphones on and direct the direction for where they're pulling sound. So they can put it in front of the person who's talking to them, or they can set it in the center of the table so that they pull out from a whole group, and it makes it a little bit easier to process some of that sound. It's also obviously an easier way to increase volume in general, even if somebody's just using it as like a general option. There's something similar called loops that typically goes back into a hearing aid to increase volume if like the hearing aid needs that additional amplification. I'm going to jump because I think I should have put this next to it. So TV ears is sort of similar to the personal amplifier, but it's obviously tied just specifically to a television. And I laughed because the first time I learned about this, the person described it as a marriage saver, citing that many couples will fight over the volume of the TV. Because if you have a significant other who has low hearing, And I personally, I have a little bit of hearing issues myself. So sometimes my husband's like, God, why is it so stinking loud in here? This can be a really great device so people can have the volume at a more comfortable level for them. So then moving back to the HomeAware, since this is a very different device, this is just super, super cool. It looks so simple, right? It looks like just a standard alarm clock, but as you can see, there's like a screen that scrolls text. Also on the top here, this little like light bulb that you see, that is a flasher. So it has the ability to do flashing light, and also not shown in the picture, it can connect to a vibrating disc. So it has multiple ways of being able to alert somebody who's deaf or has hard of hearing of things that are happening. And what's really, really unique to this system, it's not just an alarm clock. As you can see on the picture, this is scrolling the word smoke. This device has an active listening system where it's listening for common things that would indicate somebody needs assistance. So it can be set for alarms. It can be set to detect smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, doorbells, and even babies crying, which I think is just really incredible. There was an unfortunate story here in Minnesota where a couple who one of the parents was fully deaf and the other parent was very, very hard of hearing. They had a baby, and the hospital unfortunately thought that it would be unsafe to release their child to them to go home with until they could prove that they could respond to the baby's cries. So thankfully the couple was able to set this system up and prove to the hospital, like, yep, look, we can respond to our baby crying because we are being alerted and notified. So then they were able to take their baby home. It's a little bit of a problematic story, but had a really good use case of this device. So I wanted to share. Then other things, right? Something as simple as a speech to text phone. A lot of people aren't using landlines anymore, but for those that this might be a good option for, you can see that you can get devices that actually have live captioning on the landline itself. So you can see in writing what's happening, what the person's talking about, and read along. I didn't include it, but you can also get portable landline amplifiers for phones so that you can increase the volume past their standard volume control. Also probably not as commonly used anymore, but options for people who have older cell phones or lower grade cell phones. This device is a cell phone alert where it flashes lights at them. So it's taking it, like, understands when a notification comes in, a phone call or a text message, and will start flashing to get the person's attention. Like I mentioned, a lot of cell phones actually do have built-in accessibility features where you can set it up to do flashing and obviously vibration and things like that. And then this one is just a bed shaker. So a lot of adapted alarm clocks will have bed shakers built in, but a bed shaker like this one can be hooked up to different systems so that maybe it is hooked up to a doorbell, or maybe it is just to an alarm clock, but it can be put under a pillow, under a bed, and it shakes the whole bed to alert that person that it's going off. A lot of people will also use these on a chair or something like that, where that person's going to be sitting so that they can be notified and alerted if they something's going on that they need to have their attention drawn to. Applications and services. So these top three are pretty cool live captioning devices. Google Live Transcribe is Google's version of a live transcription device. Roger Voice is mostly just a free application that's used with a cell phone to do live captioning of the actual phone conversation. And Ava takes it kind of the next step, where it's live captioning across many, many different platforms. So you can put it live captioning during meetings, school, things like that, where it's really tuned into being able to hear speech and convert it quickly to captioning. Moving down to the bottom, so Otter AI. This is one that's used, I think probably a few of us have seen it in meetings. So people can use it to capture notes in meetings where it's doing live transcriptions of the conversation. You can also use the AI to summarize that, so you don't just have a block of an hour-long meeting of text at the end if you don't need that. But it's also constantly advancing to get better at predictive and active and reactive listening and summarization. The ASL, I'm going to jump over here. The ASL app, this is actually a really cool application for people to start to learn American Sign Language. There are a number of other applications for people who are wanting to learn that, or maybe it's not the individual themselves, maybe it's a family member or caregiver. So these are some cool options to get into that kind of learning mindset. And then lastly, this is just one example of an agency, Sorensen Video Relay Services. But if you're not familiar with video relay, they can be really, really fantastic ways for people who are deaf or have hard of hearing, maybe where captioned devices aren't a good option for them. Maybe they can't read, maybe it would be processing too fast. But this would be for somebody who does speak ASL. Essentially, the way that it works is when they make a phone call out or somebody makes a phone call in, it will connect through a middle party that's a live translator. There we go. Live translator for American Sign Language. So the individual on the phone calls in, the individual in the center who's the translator will then generate a video call with the person receiving the phone call, and they'll be able to translate live both directions. So it can be really cool. So I actually have a video showcasing that as well.
A communication service for deaf, hard of hearing, or speech impaired individuals who use American Sign Language as their primary mode of communication. In a VRS system, a video phone is used and the user dials a VRS provider and is connected to an interpreter who is fluent in sign language. The interpreter calls the hearing person's telephone number and relays the responses back in sign language for the VRS user. This is an important service for those who use sign language expressively and receptively.
Whoops.
A
There we go. So just kind of my last conclusions slide is to kind of urge you guys to take into consideration when the individual developed their sensory disability, because this really can impact how they're going to navigate it. A lot of people who were born with their sensory disability have an easier time, right? They didn't lose something that they had previously. They've always understood it. So maybe they've also had early education around how to interact and move forward. But if you look at somebody who's maybe had a progressive disability where over time they've lost their sight or lost their hearing, that can be really, really scary for people and be a hard transition. We see a lot of people who tend to socially isolate when they start to lose things like their vision or their hearing. I can say from experience, it is very socially isolating to be out and not be able to communicate with people because you can't properly hear. So understanding if you're seeing some of these signs in the people that you support, that they're starting to go introspective, they're starting to not want to go out or engage as much, trying to find some of these solutions and use this assistive technology to pull them out of their shell and make them more comfortable with how they can engage in the community or engage in conversations and supports and things like that with their newfound sensory disability. Awesome. So thank you. And let's hear some questions if you guys have them. And also here's my contact information. Like I said, if you have follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I'll jump in with a question if no one has one at this point. So Alaina, with folks who have visual or hearing impairments, these are off-the-shelf products, and I'm curious what sort of assessment, putting that on the spot here a little bit, but what sort of assessment questions, or how would you get to which of these products might be most helpful to someone?
I think similar to any assessment, right? It's going to be conversations, asking them like what they miss, what they were, especially for somebody who had a progressive or a recent loss of these sensory abilities, asking them what they miss, what they wish they could do that they did before, what creates anxiety or tension or makes them not want to engage in the community, right? Being really, really direct and like open with the conversations. Try to make it a friendly environment. Obviously, you don't want somebody to feel ashamed that they had this, right? There is no shame in having any sort of sensory disability, right? but sometimes there is wrapped shame, especially when you look at different cultural things. You know, some people culturally using hearing aids is just not going to ever be accepted. So understanding and meeting people where they're at. I would also say around a lot of this is a lot of observation too on your end. Maybe that person's not going to actively tell you that they're lonely, but maybe you've observed it. Maybe even when you're in communication with them doing the assessment, they're averting their eyes, they're collapsing in on themselves. Like their body language is telling you that they're deflating and trying to make themselves smaller. Things like that, those are really important to pick up on, to understand that, hey, maybe there's more I can do. Maybe I can make this person a little bit more comfortable, or just start making some of these recommendations. Even say like, hey, do you want to play adapted solitaire, right? Like, do you miss playing solitaire? Let's see, maybe you can just pull something like that out and recommend it, especially if you've worked with this person for a while and know what their previous interests and what excited them before progressing into the disability was.
Excellent, thanks, Alaina. Other questions? If not, I'll jump right back in. So this is a little more specific. I'm thinking of a relative in particular, and one of the issues they have, they are elderly and they have hearing aids that work fine around the house, but then you get into a restaurant where they're around friends, and the cacophony of everything just makes them feel very isolated.
Absolutely.
Any experience in that realm, and what type of devices? You may have mentioned some and I just wasn't thinking of it at the time.
Well, first off, if they're not, if they haven't been working closely with their hearing aid provider, some people get the hearing aids and they settle into the hearing aids, right? And the setting that it is at is what it's at. Also, people who've used hearing aids for a long time aren't aware that newer hearing aids have applications where you can actually adjust for specified settings. So I used hearing aids for a little while, and I can confirm I had that experience. I stopped using them because when I would get out, if there were sudden noises, it could be so loud. It could be very, very stressful, especially in a restaurant setting. Somebody drops a plate or taps like a spoon on a plate too hard. It's amazing what hearing aids will pull and make the amplified sound. So it can be very stressful. Definitely working with the app on the hearing aid itself to tune it to the environment is really important, because it will do things like drop for, you know, maybe higher sounds or lower sounds. It'll bring it more centralized. Or if you get into an environment that has a lot of that murmur sound, it'll pull the other direction where it's going to pull higher sounds and lower sounds. Otherwise, I would say those personal amplifier devices, you can put those headphones over your hearing aids and then direct conversation. You can put it in the center of the table. Or specifically for somebody who has hearing aids, there are loops devices that can tie in to do centralized amplification. So I would recommend something like that, or considerations for those. Those are a little bit pricier. They're kind of along the lines of getting another set of hearing aids. So maybe starting with a personal amplifier. Or if you just want to put it on everybody else, you can get a personal amplifier in the other direction that you can actually wear that amplifies your voice to somebody. So that can be also another way, as like a family member or somebody like we're like wanting to hang out with somebody who has hard hearing. You want to do that for them, because sometimes it can be extremely exhausting to try so hard to listen to people. So as personal amplifiers can come in really handy for that as well.
Great suggestions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Alaina? All right, if not, then we're going to wrap up the speaker series section. I will be posting the recording and sharing it out with everybody, and in addition to last week's recording, which hasn't gone out yet. Alaina, thank you so much, as always, for your expertise. You are a wealth and a database of technology options, so we're lucky to have you on the team.
Thank you.
That will end this recording, but please stick around because Kelly is here from Map Habit, and she's going to be doing the vendor spotlight in just 30 seconds. All right, ending the recording now.